I was just going to go through a recent release of the murder sheet and where they're talking about the documents in the Richard Allen case. And there's 3 points that I kind of wanted to contest or whatever. And so the first one is the lack of transparency gives ammunition to conspiracy theorists in this case, and that's bad for Carroll County. Number 2 is that Richard Allen is placed in the Westville Correctional Facility to keep him safe, and that there's nothing like malicious about that. And 3 is that the recent filing where there was a letter that came from the Westville Correctional Facility to the court that isn't from Richard Allen because it's filed different than the first one that said it was from Richard Allen. And if things are worded differently, then people need to look closer into what they're putting out there. And something about Kevin having a heart attack or something because people had said that the change of plea, but it was really a different Richard Allen. And so people need to research stuff and be more responsible. And if there's something that they could base their opinion off of, like that has happened in the past, that they need to look at that and then base their opinion accordingly. And I'm sure there's other stuff that they're talking about, how much better they are than everybody else and how much more responsible they are. And so I just wanted to go through and kind of give my opinion on the whole thing.
Claiming that it would hurt the case if it was released. And then when the PCA came out, I think everybody had the reaction of how? How would this hurt the case being out there? Judge Gull immediately pretty much made it public. I mean, but by noting...
He really damaged his credibility.
Yeah, that was, I believe, an overstatement, or at least I'm not seeing how it could... I don't understand how it could not be an overstatement, because, I mean, there may be things that we're not aware of that, would factor into his decision-making, and in that case, fine. But in general, when somebody does that, I don't know how believable I find it when they're basically saying all of these other things must remain sealed. I think that it's very important for the prosecution to be conducting itself in a way that is transparent and open, because there is a organized, small, but organized minority of people who follow this case who are liable to get into full-fledged conspiracy theory mode. That's not good for Carroll County. That's not good for its citizens. That's not good for its public servants. And you are giving people who want to assume the worst about this case free ammunition to hurl back at you when you basically do this.
In my opinion, I think Murder Sheet is giving Nick McClellan a little bit too much credit. He has a history of not being transparent. I'm going to give you guys 2 examples of how Nick McClellan is not forthright with public information. My first example comes from the Flora case, where they refused to release the 911 calls. Debbie Lowe is a writer for the Carroll County Comment, so she's press, and she wanted to listen to the 911 calls and sent an email to the 911 call operator stating as much. And she received an email back that said, oh, well, I'm going to need to run it by the state prosecutor or the county prosecutor before you can listen to it. And so Debbie Lowe actually filed a complaint with the public information counselor. And I just wanted to read a part of his reply to her. I am unaware of any statute that allows a prosecutor to grant permission or restrict another agency from releasing anything. This despite the recent amicus brief from the State Prosecuting Attorneys Council suggesting prosecutors have a godlike status in controlling the flow of public information to and from any agency statewide. It's an extremely dangerous precedent and just plain wrong. On March 1st, 2023, a formal opinion issued by the state's public access counselor Luke Britt, who is an attorney and appointed by the Indiana governor, was published in the Carroll County Comment, and I'm going to read that to you right now. PAC, prosecutors and ISP error in late records released to the public. March 1st, 2023, by Deb Lowe, staff writer. A formal opinion issued by the state's public A formal opinion issued by the state's public access counselor Luke Britt, who is an attorney and appointed by the Indiana governor, indicates some actions by local law enforcement, specifically the county prosecutor and the Indiana State Police, created an issue with the public access to information by trying to manipulate when arrest information for Richard Allen would be released. Allen was arrested for the double homicide of Abigail Williams and Liberty German near Delphi in 2017. This office remains convinced that much of the consternation regarding public access in this case, Richard Allen, is much of the government's own doing, Britt wrote in a formal opinion. Simply put, the law enforcement agencies at play could have anticipated the onslaught of requests for the arrest information and prepared accordingly, instead of keeping the public in the dark for several days until they arranged a more convenient method of disseminating information. The opinion is in response to a formal complaint alleging that Indiana State Police violated the Access to Public Records Act, ARPA. It is the public policy of the state of Indiana that all persons are entitled to full and complete information regarding the affairs of government and the official acts of those who represent them as public officials and employees, the public access counselor wrote. Further, the Access to Public Records Act states that providing persons with information is an essential function of a representative government and an integral part of routine duties of public officials and employees, whose duty it is to provide the information. Britt indicated that a law enforcement agency must make arrests and bookings information available for inspection and copying in compliance with ARPA. The law states that the record containing the information must be created within 24 hours after the suspected crime, accident, complaint, or arrest has been reported to the agency. ISP disagreed about the matter. ISP argues it was under the direction of the county prosecutor and that any court records were sealed. ISP further argued that ARPA only requires the creation of the records in question within 24 hours, but not their release. ARPA requires law enforcement agencies to create, maintain, and disclose any daily log or record that lists suspected crimes, accidents, or complaints, which includes 1. The time, substance, and location of all complaints or requests for assistance received by the agency. 2. The time and nature of the agency's response to all complaints or requests for assistance. 3. If the incident involves an alleged crime or infraction, A. The time, date, and location of occurrence. B. The name, age of any victim unless the victim is a victim of a crime under IC 3542-4 or IC 3542-3.5. C. The factual circumstances surrounding the incident, and D. The general description of any injuries, property, or weapons involved. Additionally, if a person is arrested and jailed, the following must be logged. 1. Information that identifies the person, including the person's name, age, and address. 2. Information concerning the reason for the person being placed in jail or lockup, including the name of the person whose order the person is being held. 3. The time and date that the person was received and the time and date of the person's discharge or transfer. 4. The amount of the person's bail or bond if it has been fixed. Reasonable time is determined case by case, according to Britt. A daily log is distinguishable because if an agency is following the law, there should be no searching, gathering, or reviewing the daily log. The process should be rather more expedient. One thing is clear, if a law enforcement agency complies with the statutory command of ARPA and creates a daily log as required, a reasonable time would involve little to no waiting by the requester, Britt wrote. Since the law requires creation of the record within 24 hours, a reasonable time to provide that record should be no more than the time to create it, he added. ISP also cites the local prosecutor and presiding judge as factors in the delay. However, ARPA's daily log requirement for law enforcement is not a judicial record. As a result, the daily log is mutually exclusive from any court record over which judicial officers have purviewed. The daily log statute applies to law enforcement agencies in the executive branch of government. It is an affirmative duty that cannot be bargained, pled, or motioned away through a court procedure, Britt concluded. Wright's formal conclusion stated, "It is the opinion of this office that the daily log information required by the Access to Public Records Act should have been made available on demand no later than 24 hours after the suspect's arrest." And so makes it pretty clear to me that Nick McClellan just really doesn't respect the public access to information in general, and he just doesn't find the value in having an open and transparent governing body. Or something shady is going on. You never know.
And again, I want to stress the allegations that the defense made were incredibly serious. And as a resident of the state of Indiana, I deserve to know what the state is doing in my name. Are they really abusing a man who is legally innocent in the fashion that the defense alleged? Or is the defense exaggerating in an attempt to score some sort of points? I want to know the answer to that. I want to know where the truth lies. And Nick McClellan is not allowing us to know that. He is not posting his response publicly.
Personally, I mean, I'm going to give you my personal opinion on what's happening there. And this may be wrong, so keep that in mind. But I kind of tend to think that it's probably somewhere in the middle. You probably have Alan enduring some pretty intense prison conditions. Westville is a notorious prison. He's in isolation. He's under suicide watch. He's not doing well. I believe that. I don't know that it was definitely some sort of machinations by local authorities to try to punish him. I think it's possible that it was determined sort of like, well, he'll be very safe in isolation. Not really thinking about his mental well-being, but just like no one's going to shiv him there. And then because he was not being represented at the time this decision was made, it kind of just proceeded from there. And so I think that's problematic, but I don't think that necessarily points to maliciousness on anyone's part. But I mean, how hard is it to just say that? How hard is it to say, well, here's our side? Because as you said, as citizens of Indiana, people should be entitled to know this. And it should not be, if your case is such that you have, everything has to be kept in the shadows, then what is going on? And I don't really know that it does not engender confidence, and it should stop, because it's not right. This is not how things are done. This is not how a case should be professionally tried in secrecy. We're not to get all ridiculous, but we're in a democracy, folks. Like we shouldn't be having like secret trials or trials that are completely in shadow. There are instances where secrecy in cases is very important. You have witnesses who are at risk. You have, flight risk with suspects. So fine, but then put it in a filing, put it in a hearing, put your point out there. You don't just unilaterally just start sealing stuff at random.
I disagree with this, and I think that they did maybe have some malice when making this decision or request. And I think in general, they just don't think that the rules apply to them.
So on April 14th, Judge Gull entered her response to all of this, and I will read it. On November 3rd, 2022, the judge of the Carroll Circuit Court, at the request of the Carroll County Sheriff, entered the following order, quote, "Accordingly, pursuant to Indiana Code 3533-11-1, the court orders the Sheriff of Carroll County to transfer a defendant to a facility of the Department of Correction designated by the Commissioner of the Department as suitable for the confinement of defendant and provided the space is available," end quote. These types of orders are referred to as, quote, safekeeper orders. The Department of Correction has complied with this order. Consistent with that order and the safekeeper statute, the Department of Correction is authorized to move the defendant within the Department of Correction to accommodate his medical and physical needs pursuant to medical directives by the Department of Correction physicians, psychiatrists, or psychologists. So that's a bit of a word salad. I think one thing that is worth stressing there is, you may recall in the original emergency motion filed by Brad Rosie, he requested that Allen be moved to Cass County Jail. And basically the judge there is saying no, that he can only be moved within the Department of Correction, and county jails do not fall under the purview of the Department of Correction.
Right. Having spoken to some former inmates of Westville on the show, I mean, I think I can see where there would be concern about a county jail being suitable for Richard Allen. One thing that we've consistently heard is that other inmates, whether they're in jail, whether they're in prison, do not take kindly to people who are even just accused in this case of hurting children. And so that alone is problematic for Alan. He's not been convicted. So it's very weird for him to be in a prison. But I could understand where there is security concerns.
It's worth noting that in the original motion, Attorney Rosie indicated that Cass County personnel indicated they felt confident they could indeed keep Richard Allen safe at Cass County Jail.
Yep. I think, yeah, I wish at this point we just had more clarity from the prosecutor, because then I feel like we could better assess what the judge's decision ended up being.
In my opinion, saying that a prison is safer is not really true. And shorter term inmates. Jails often house individuals awaiting trial or serving shorter sentences for less serious offenses. This results in a less entrenched social hierarchy and potentially a less violent atmosphere than a prison, where inmates are often serving long-term sentences for more serious offenses, and some of them are doing life and they don't have anything to lose. People who are in county, they're not really doing hard time, and so they have a lot more incentive to not get into more trouble and to be good, as opposed to people in prison. They will get more respect if they hurt somebody who's in there for crimes against children. And two examples that we all know about is Keegan Kline. He's been in county this whole time and he's just fine. And then also even James Bryan Childwell, he did actually get beat up when he was in county, but he didn't get killed. And both of those people were accused of crimes against children. So to say that Richard Allen couldn't be safe in a county jail is just not true.
I just think it's really important for people to really look at the language, and if you're making an assumption about something like this, and there's a comparison point that you can kind of look at previous data and make a comparison or make a link, really look at what language is used, because I don't think we should be assuming a lot at this point. And I don't think we should be assuming that this is from Alan. Again, it might turn out to be, maybe we're totally wrong and they just decided to file it in a really weird way. But, if things are different, they probably are different for a reason. I mean, even today, weren't people posting about, didn't you do you want to talk about your heart attack story?
Okay.
Yeah, didn't some kind of misunderstanding over a filing almost give you a heart attack today, Kevin?
Yeah, I saw somebody was posting somewhere a screenshot that seemed to be from Richard Allen's My Case page indicating that there was a change of plea hearing scheduled. And if that was true, it would indicate that Richard Allen would be pleading guilty. But that turned out to be a different Richard Allen in another case.
Yeah. So just really, we should all be really, really cautious in checking our work, or we'll give Kevin a heart attack. So no one wants that.
There is so much corruption here. It's just totally mental. And until we realize the extent of the problem, we'll never be able to fix it. Because if you have a Disneyland version in your head of what the problem is, the solutions you offer are not going to be tailored to the actual problem. Nothing's going to get fixed. And for a lot of people, it's hard for them to wrap their mind around this stuff. How are these people that I idolize, like Woody Allen, put out in front of me as this great guy, blah, 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 and it clashes with the reality so intensely, people develop cognitive dissonance. Mm-hmm. Why would he have been so promoted and so praised after doing all of that? Well, our institutions are fundamentally corrupt, and they reward behavior like this if you're in the right clubs and hang out with the right people, and that type of stuff doesn't bother them. We should be deeply disturbed as Americans that there is a major segment of very powerful elite actors that think that type of behavior is fine.
And if they get caught, nothing will happen to them.
Exactly.
That's actually scary.
Yeah, but if you're like, I don't know, a kid in Florida and you get caught with a joint by the wrong cop, but Woody Allen can molest 2 kids and it's fine, Let
me ask you a question.
There's just a huge double standard, I think that's pretty clear.
I'd be curious to know what you say.
Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share, and see you next time. Bye.